Welcome back to the Deep Dive. It is Monday, February 2nd, 2026. And I have to say, if you are listening to this from Kingston right now, or, well, anywhere in the parish, really, you are probably a little confused.
Just a little.
You might be reaching for a sweater, maybe even digging around for a second blanket. It is officially sweater weather in Jamaica, which is, well, it's mood.
It really is. We're seeing a significant drop in temperatures. Those strong Christmas winds are back, causing some really rough seas. It is a proper cold front.
It feels so immediate, right? You step outside, that wind hits you, and that's the whole story. It's cold. Everyone's posting about it, talking about the Jamaica winter. But today, we're doing what we do best here. We're taking that immediate sensation, that chill in the air. We're going to peel back the layers. Because while everyone is talking about the jacket weather, there is a much bigger and frankly a more concerning story hidden inside this weather pattern.
That's exactly right. The weather outside, the wind, the drop in mercury, that's just the symptom. The diagnosis is something much more complex. We are looking at a signal of what experts in our source material are calling climate volatility.
Volatility. That is the key word for today. We aren't just talking about a few chilly days. We're exploring how this specific type of weather behavior is quietly, rewriting the rules of housing, of land security, and even financial stability in Jamaica.
It sounds like a huge leap, I know, going from a cold breeze to the stability of the entire banking sector, but the connection is incredibly tight.
So to guide us through this, we're digging into a really fascinating article from Jamaica Homes News. It's titled Cold Fronts, Climate Volatility, and What They Signal for Housing in Jamaica. It just came out today.
A very timely piece.
It is. But before we get into the heavy financial stuff, I want to push back a little. Why are we so worried about a cold front? I mean, isn't this just winter?
That is the first question everyone asks. And to be clear, the meteorological authorities have flagged this system as part of the region's normal winter pattern. Cold fronts happen.
Right.
If you look at the calendar, we are in February. This is when they are supposed to happen.
Okay, so if the Met Office says it's normal, where is the volatility? Why are we framing this as some kind of warning signal?
The volatility isn't in the event itself, it's in the context. You have to look at the timeline.
Yeah.
This cold front isn't happening in a vacuum. It is following a year that was defined by the exact opposite.
Okay.
Think back over the last 12 months here in Jamaica. What do you remember?
Extreme heat. Absolutely. I remember the heat waves were just brutal, record-breaking stuff. And then there was the flooding. And before that, didn't we have those long, dry spells?
That is the definition of volatility. See, when we talk about climate change in the Caribbean, there's a misconception that it just means everything gets hotter.
That's global warming.
Right. But climate change is about the variance. It's about the swing. There is a term for this in climate science they call stationarity.
Stationarity. Okay,
Yeah.
Unpack that for us. That sounds a little bit like a textbook term.
It is, but the concept is really simple. Stationarity is just the idea that the past helps you predict the future. It means the weather tends to stay within a certain familiar bandwidth.
A predictable range.
Exactly. Engineers, planners, they rely on stationarity. They assume that the highs won't be too high and the lows won't be too low based on, say, the last 50 years of data.
And you're saying we've lost that.
We are losing it rapidly. This cold front, coming so soon after extreme heat, it signals that the bandwidth is breaking. We're seeing hotter heat waves, heavier rainfall, stronger storms, and now these colder than expected systems.
And the crucial part.
They're all occurring within shorter and shorter time frames.
So it's the whiplash effect. We're
Yeah.
just bouncing between the guardrails.
That's a perfect way to put it. And for Jamaica, this volatility matters less for any single event like today's cold. And more for what it reveals about reliability.
Okay.
I mean, think about it. Our entire society, our infrastructure, our housing, it is all built on a foundation of reliability. We rely on certain environmental conditions to stay within a specific lane.
And now the car is swerving all over the road.
And hitting the guardrails.
Yeah.
The problem isn't just the weather event itself. It is the fact that the environmental conditions we rely on, rainfall patterns, temperature ranges, coastal stability, they're all becoming unpredictable.
Which brings us right to the core of our deep dive today, housing. Because a house isn't just a pile of bricks.
Yeah.
It's a machine for living in, right? It has to function.
It is an engineered system.
Yeah.
And every engineered system is built around those assumptions we just talked about, assumptions of predictability.
Right, the historical data.
An architect, a structural engineer, when they design a home in Jamaica, they're using that historical data. They design for a specific range of temperatures, a certain amount of rainfall, specific wind loads.
But if stationarity is dead, as you say, then those historical assumptions are, well, they're not worth much anymore, are they?
They become what we call model risk. The model you use to build the house no longer matches reality. When those environmental assumptions weaken because of volatility, the margin for error in how a house performs just shrinks.
Let's get specific, though, because I think most people hear cold front and think, okay, so I'll close the window. How does a drop in temperature actually hurt a building in the Caribbean? We build with concrete. It's tough.
Concrete is tough, yes, but it's not invincible. We have to look at something called the building envelope, basically the outer shell of the house. Concrete reacts to physics just like anything else. It expands when it gets hot and it contracts when it gets cold.
Sure, basic physics.
But now consider the volatility. We just came off a year of intense, record-breaking heat. That concrete has been expanded, stressed out by thermal load. Now suddenly we get a sharp drop in temperature. That rapid shift creates something called thermal shock.
Thermal shock. That sounds dramatic.
Mm-hmm.
Is it? Is it like pouring cold water on a hot glass?
On micro scale, yes. The material contracts very quickly. Over time, or with these severe shifts, this can lead to microcracking.
Okay.
Now, on its own, a single microcrack isn't a disaster. But remember, this cold front isn't just cold air. What else does it bring with it?
Rain, wind.
Exactly, driving rain. So now you have these tiny fissures in your concrete or your render, all caused by that thermal stress. Then the wind drives water into those cracks. In a tropical environment, moisture intrusion is the enemy.
Because of mold.
Mold is part of it, but structurally it's about the steel. Most homes in Jamaica are reinforced concrete. There's steel rebar inside that concrete.
Right.
If water gets to that steel, it rusts. And when steel rusts, it expands.
And since the concrete is hard, if the steel expands inside it...
It blows the concrete out. It's called spalling. So the volatility, the swing from hot to cold, wet to dry, it accelerates this entire aging process. It's not one big hurricane knocking the house down.
It's the stress of the constant change weakening the structure from the inside out.
That is a really important distinction. We always worry about the acute event, the Category 5 storm, but you're right, the real threat is this chronic condition.
It's a chronic stressor.
Precisely. And the source material highlights this specifically. It points to informal settlements, older concrete homes, and structures that have been only lightly retrofitted. These buildings were just not designed with these rapid climate shifts, this thermal shock in mind.
Okay, so walls are cracking. What about the roof? I feel like every single time there's a storm, the roof is the first thing we talk about.
The roof is the first line of defense in that building envelope. Wind stress on roofing sheets and trusses is a huge factor with these cold fronts because the winds are gusty and unpredictable.
Right.
But the source points out another massive issue: drainage.
Drainage. That seems kind of boring compared to thermal shock.
It's boring until it fails. Think about that volatility pattern again. You have a long dry spell. The ground is hard, maybe cracked. Your gutters are full of dust and debris. Then, boom, the cold front brings heavy, sudden rain.
The water has nowhere to go.
The ground can't absorb it fast enough because of the soil crusting. The gutters overflow, the municipal drains back up. Now you have water pooling around your foundation.
And if the ground is swelling with all that rain and then shrinking with the next heat wave.
That movement cracks foundations. It shifts retaining walls. And for coastal housing, the surge from these winter storms can be just as damaging as a tropical system. You get salt spray and erosion in places that are supposed to be safe during the dry season.
It really paints a picture of a house under siege, but a silent siege.
That is a great way to put it. And that leads us directly to the economic impact, because this physical wear and tear, this silent siege, it has a price tag.
And I imagine for low-income households, that price tag is incredibly heavy.
It is. Death by 1,000 cuts. The source describes this perfectly. For a wealthy homeowner, a damaged gutter or a leaky roof is an annoyance. You call a guy, you fix it.
No big deal.
But for low-income households, these pressures are cumulative.
Right. So you fix the roof, but then the drainage fails.
Yeah.
You fix the drainage, and now you have a crack in the wall.
It creates a cycle of small climate-related repairs. And over time, these translate into significantly rising maintenance costs. It's sometimes called the poverty penalty of climate change.
The poverty penalty.
It costs more to be poor because your infrastructure is often less resilient, so you end up spending a higher percentage of your income just trying to stay at the status quo.
And we have to talk about the insurance gap here. I'm assuming a lot of these homes we're talking about, informal settlements, older family homes, They are fully insured against climate volatility.
Many have limited or no insurance coverage at all, or maybe they have coverage for named storms, hurricanes, but not for gradual deterioration or rain events.
So the homeowner pays out of pocket.
Every single time. And when these small, repeated damages pile up, that leads to disinvestment.
Disinvestment. How so?
Well, if you have to choose between fixing a crack in the retaining wall or paying school fees, you pay the fees, the wall gets worse, the property value drops, communities start to look run down, not because people don't care, but because the volatility is outpacing their ability to maintain the asset.
That is a really sobering realization. We started this deep dive talking about putting on a sweater, and we've ended up discussing the potential erosion of community wealth.
And we haven't even touched on the big one yet, the macro-level impact. The article raises a very important point about land use scrutiny and the financial sector.
What do they mean by scrutiny? Is the government stepping in?
They're starting to. As these climate patterns shift, areas that we once considered marginally safe are being reevaluated. We are talking about flood-prone areas, unstable slopes, coastal zones.
So a plot of land that was okay to build on 10 years ago might now be considered too risky.
Correct. It might no longer be viable for long-term residential development without massive, expensive mitigation. Retaining walls, advanced drainage, elevated foundations.
Which puts developers in a really tough spot. I mean, we have a housing crisis, right? We need more homes.
That is the developer's dilemma. They're balancing that urgent need to build housing against an environmental uncertainty that just raises construction costs.
So you either build safely and it's too expensive, or you build cheaply and create a problem for later.
If you build safely for the volatility, taking into account thermal shock, drainage loads, wind shear, the house becomes more expensive. If you build cheaply to keep costs down, you are building a future liability.
And this must absolutely terrify the banks. Banks do not like liabilities.
Banks hate uncertainty, and this brings us to the long-term view. The financial sector lenders, insurers, they operate on a different timeline than you or I. And here's the scary part. They operate on different timelines from each other.
What do you mean by that?
Think about a mortgage. When you sign those papers, how long is the bank committed to you?
Usually 25 or 30 years.
Right. The bank is taking a 30-year bet on the asset. But what about your insurance policy? How long does that last?
It renews every year.
Exactly. There is a massive disconnect there. The bank is locked in for decades, assuming the house will still be there. The insurer is only locked in for 12 months.
Oh.
If the volatility gets too bad, if the risk models show that an area is becoming uninsurable, the insurer can just walk away next year.
Whoa. So I could be 5 years into a 30-year mortgage and suddenly my insurance company says, sorry, you're too risky, and just drops me.
That is the protection gap. It's happening in California with wildfires. It's happening in Florida with hurricanes. This article suggests Jamaica is facing the exact same structural shift. If insurers pull back, the homeowner is left in default on their mortgage because mortgages require insurance.
That's terrifying. It's not just about the rain, it's about the contract.
It's actuarial risk. The math is changing. Lenders and insurers don't look at seasons. They look at the probability of catastrophic loss over decades. If that probability line goes up because of climate volatility, the cost of capital goes up.
So we could see a situation where banks just stop lending for homes in certain areas. Or insurance becomes so expensive that regular people can't even afford it.
We are already seeing the beginnings of that globally. If a bank thinks that a coastal zone or a hillside is too volatile, that the risk of damage over 20 years is too high, they tighten the tap. They might ask for a 40% down payment. They might refuse to finance older homes.
This is where it really hits home for me. Because in Jamaica, a house isn't just an asset, it's everything.
It is the primary vehicle for generational wealth.
Right. It's the retirement plan. It's the legacy you leave to your kids.
And this environmental instability is basically attacking all three of those pillars. It introduces uncertainty into the asset, the retirement plan, and the legacy.
How so?
If the house is constantly needing repairs, it drains the retirement fund. If the land becomes designated as high risk, the asset value drops. You can't sell it. If the structure degrades, there is simply less to pass on.
So the house goes from being a safety net to being a financial anchor that just drags you down.
That is the threat. And that is why this cold front matters. It's not about needing a sweater today. It is about recognizing the pattern.
The loss of stationarity.
Exactly. Jamaica is entering a period where environmental conditions can no longer be treated as background noise. For a long time, we treated weather as just the setting, the backdrop.
And now?
Now, it is a main character in the economy. It's a structural factor.
It is quietly shaping land use, construction standards, housing costs.
Resilience planning. You cannot make a housing policy decision in 2026 without looking at the climate data. And frankly, you shouldn't buy a house without looking at it either.
Really feels like we are at a turning point. We can't just fix the roof and hope for the best anymore. That patch-it-up mentality just doesn't work when the environment is this aggressive.
No. The days of responding to each event in isolation are over. Or at least they should be. The challenge ahead, as laid out in the source, is to recognize that housing security in Jamaica is now inextricably linked to how well the country and the individual anticipates and adapts to this unstable climate.
Anticipate and adapt. That sounds like a new mantra for the construction industry.
And for homeowners, too.
So, as we wrap up this deep dive, let's try to put a bow on this. It's been a bit of a journey. We started with a cold front in Kingston.
We moved past the temperature to see it as a signal of volatility, the loss of that old predictability.
We geeked out a bit on the physics, thermal shock, building envelopes, and why concrete isn't as invincible as we all think.
We look at the social cost, that poverty penalty of constant maintenance.
And we finished with the scary stuff, the disconnect between your 30-year mortgage and your 1-year insurance policy.
It is a comprehensive shift. Climate volatility isn't just an environmental issue anymore. It is a market fundamental.
So, here is the thought I want to leave everyone with today. And this is something I've been chewing on since reading the article. If housing security is now completely linked to how well we anticipate this unstable climate, do we need to completely redefine what makes a property valuable?
That is the question, isn't it? Is a valuable property one with view of the ocean or one that sits on high ground with oversized drainage and a reinforced roof?
Exactly. We might need to change our entire aesthetic. Sure. We need to redefine what safe means for the next generation. It's not just about a gated community anymore. It's about a climate-resilient community.
We might need to make boring and sturdy the new luxury.
That's a hard sell, but probably a very necessary one.
Indeed.
We want to thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Stay warm out there, or cool, depending on when you listen to this. Keep an eye on those clouds, and maybe, just maybe, take a walk around your house and check those gutters.
Absolutely. Prevention is always cheaper than the cure.
Take care, everyone. We'll catch you on the next one.